let's do one more question, John.
Yeah, I can do another one.
One more. Let's see here. Okay. David Dan asks, what is your takeaway from the mainstream media complete meltdown? Because Kanye West and Candace Owens wore T-shirts emblazoned with White Lives Matter. These same people don't seem to be outraged from the flagrant use of the N-word in rap music or all the other social ills that afflict Black people in this country. That is David Dan. What did you make of that incident?
Glenn, honestly, I've been a little bemused over the past couple weeks. Why are we supposed to care so deeply about statements that Kanye West makes? I mean, I love his music, but he's clearly kind of he's an undereducated, vainglorious, slightly imbalanced person who now and then says things that he knows get people going.
What you mean, man? Ye is a genius. Don't you know that? Ye is a genius.
Oh, he is. Musically, he is. I really do think he is. But once you get beyond that, I don't care what his quote unquote politics are. This business of, what he's trying to communicate, and who cares?
Well, he's like a billionaire. He's a billionaire. He's a fashion guy. He's got people wearing his shoes and his design stuff and whatnot. And he's relatively young as people go. He's an entrepreneur. He's a significant influencer, as they would say.
Who's he influencing? That, and also Herschel Walker's son Christian. The news was all about him for about 8 days. Who the hell cares what that little performance artist does on YouTube? I don't care.
That was, to me, an illustration of this thing that Matt Taibbi has been arguing. His book Hate Inc. This book about the press.
I didn't read it, but yeah.
He thinks that the media have become so much a handmaiden to this kind of divisive and partisan separation because that's where the clicks are and that's where the money is. And you cultivate these tribes and you just tell them what they want to hear. And the other guy's got to be a Nazi, and there's no middle ground, and and it's all fed by a corruption of media and a kind of maladaptation of media to the technological changes with social media and whatnot. It's a very interesting. I mean, Matt Taibbi's a very interesting guy, but a Trump or a Kanye West, these are very different things. These two things, but neither is possible in the absence of this environment. Would be the way that this kind of theory would go.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree that, like Kim Kardashian, which I don't get either. I never understood. She's a billionaire too, practically. I mean,
well, I think she's supposed to be pretty
but doesn't the Kardashian brand go back to OJ? Isn't this a kind of offspring of the OJ thing? I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
I don't get how modern fashion works, but influencers do exist, and when they speak,
yeah. But in Kanye's case, I'm not sure that anybody's voting preferences are being affected by his affection for the Confederate flag or something he puts on his jacket. It's as if he's basically telling us to jump, and so a whole lot of people jump when they're just such more important things that we have to face. I agree that I agree that he is a musical genius, and I've written about it. I really, I followed him closely for his first years in terms of his art. I love what he does. But the person himself, I'm sorry. And also Candace Owens. Honestly, I like to read my news more than watch it. I watch very little news, and she's mostly somebody who talks on TV. I don't read her. I don't know much about her, to tell you the truth. But even there, why is it such a terrible thing that there's a Candace Owens? As if she's this scourge, as if there aren't many, 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 many Black voices speaking against what she says. Why is it that we assume that she somehow wins as soon as she opens her mouth? I don't get it.
Okay, well, I mean, there's Kanye/Candace, and then there is the meta thing about why are we talking about Kanye? So it seems to me the key issue here is authenticity, whether or not these are Black voices. So you might discredit the whole notion of a Black voice. Okay.
Yeah.
And that would be one place to take your stand. I mean, you would say, you would beg the question of whether or not, or you would rather say, you would render irrelevant the question of whether or not they're authentically black, by saying this whole putting any stock on somebody's blackness. But and then they go to the motive or the root of it. Kanye's mental condition. That's what most black people, when I mention Kanye, they roll their eyes and they say he's off his meds. They say he's bipolar. In other words, they in effect say no, he's not authentically expressing a black man's view. He could be, the little kid who says the emperor has no clothes. I mean, let's just get concrete. Abortion. He says there's a genocide scale extirpation of black life. I mean, this is what he said. Now, you can't say that. You can't say that the issue of life and a woman's right to choose and the moral questions of, you mentioned this earlier, when you terminate, these cells that are growing inside the woman's body, when is that a human being that you have some sense of, the integrity of the being that is then being killed in effect? How does that work out? And I mean, he's saying there's more abortions than live births. I mean, he said, in certain quarters, and that and it's being promoted by an ideology that, if you were to look at how it actually impacts on black people, is near genocidal. Now, I'm not saying this. I just want to be clear. It's not my position. Okay. I'm saying it can't be said. And he's saying it. So then that has to be dealt with. You have to give an account of what's going on. Likewise about Trump. I mean, he says, I like Trump. Can a black person really like Trump? I mean, doesn't he have to be crazy in order to like Trump? Can a black billionaire influencer really like Trump? Is that not the tip of the iceberg? If you allow that, doesn't that kind of open up something that could unravel into something? I mean, they're trying to keep us on the reservation. And Kanye West, now his motive could be entirely self-promotional. He might see the whole picture and recognize the cachet that he can generate for himself by standing athwart this thing. But whatever his motives might be, what about the extirpation of black life attendant to the extraordinarily high level of abortion amongst black people? Is it really not possible to raise that question?
I need to bone up on this issue of what an influencer is, because I take all of your points, but it's kind of like with Trump. I'm not sensing a game plan in this man. I'm sensing jolly eruptions from somebody who really likes to listen to himself talk and isn't thinking very hard about what he's saying. I mean, at the end of one of his early CDs, I remember being struck by a whole 12, 15-minute sequence he does at the end, where he just sits and talks about his rise to fame, to a background. He's just saying, well, this happened, and Jay-Z did this, and next thing, then this happened. It's just all about how I became famous. And I'm thinking, this is a cut on an album. He's really into himself. He's one of those people, kind of like Trump. And so he says some stuff, and he knows he's going to get a jump out of people. I don't know if this is quite what I thought being an influencer was. He's just this guy shooting off his mouth. And yeah, he's saying the sorts of things that black people aren't supposed to say. But I would rather see discussions of those things started by somebody who was actually thinking about what they were saying. And I don't mean it has to be a college professor. You don't have to be a journalist or a college professor, but not him. I mean, just pull the camera back. We are, as a nation, discussing the political insights of a professional pop musician. That's new on me. I don't get it.